Welcome to the Comedy Reset Spotlight. This is the place to be if you want to hear from some of the most innovative and exciting comedy creators from around the globe. On this podcast, you'll hear from a variety of guests who are pushing the boundaries of what comedy can be. If you're looking for fresh perspectives and new ideas, this is the podcast for you.
Episode 34. Reno, Nevada comedian, Robby Cook.
Can you walk us through the moment or series of events that made you realize you wanted to pursue stand-up comedy?
Well, I never really thought about it until my ex-wife used to tell me that I wasn't funny. And I would tell her that, hey, I'm going to go try to do comedy and do some open mics. And she's like, you're not funny. I don't know why you're wasting your time. Until I got booked on a show. I finally got out and did an open mic. I got booked on a show. And I had her my phone. I put the video recorder on. I pushed record. I handed it to her. And her and my daughter were sitting at a table. And she recorded the show. And after the show, I played the tape back. And she was laughing during the whole thing. And, she was a very critical person. She was not a beat around the bush person. She's a very, very blunt, straightforward person. She's like Simon Cowell, she's not going to lie to you and tell you you're good if you're not good. And so you really have to be funny for her to say you're funny. And when she told me that I was funny that night, I had the gratification that I needed. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to pursue this because she thinks I'm funny. And I have the video to prove it that she laughed during the whole thing and thought that my set was funny. So I just started writing more jokes and getting better. And I'd run them by her. And then life events that were taking place between her and I, at the time, and were funny. And I'd put them on stage and I had her support, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to pursue comedy, and this is great.
Who were your comedic inspirations growing up, and how have they influenced your style or approach to comedy?
Yeah, growing up, I wasn't really exposed to a lot of, what you would call street comedy. So um, there was a lot of Johnny Carson. I listened to a lot of Jack Benny, but my all-time favorite comedian, I guess I would say, is Jerry Clower. I just love the way his accent and the way he tells stories and the different words that he uses that you couldn't find in a dictionary if you looked it up, and you understand what he's saying when he tells the stories. So Jerry Clower, I love the way he storytells and tells about life events and he puts you in the place. So that would be a big one. Johnny Carson, I always loved Johnny Carson's monologue. It was always my favorite part of the show. He was just one of the funniest people that I ever remember listening to growing up. I remember I was like 15 years old, and I don't know where I got it, where we got it, but me and the neighbor kids, we found a Eddie Murphy comedian cassette tape, and we listened to that thing over and over again. And I had memorized, you know, half of that tape, and it was funny because all the people around me, like especially the girls, they would memorize, song lyrics and songs, and I wasn't good at that, but I could memorize, comedy. I mean, George Carlin was another big one I grew up with. I loved George Carlin. I had at Boy Scout camp, I had seen a boy recite the whole Icebox Man verbatim, and I was inspired. I was like, "Oh, that is so cool!" I want to be able to do that, and I was able to do that with Eddie Murphy and comedians. So uh, that was a great inspiration on knowing that I could memorize jokes and I could tell them, and so I started becoming the funny kid, growing up. So now with the newer comedians, I'm really inspired by I like Josh Blue. He's a good one. He makes me laugh all the time. He's really funny. Um, Kevin James is really funny. He talks about his daughters and stuff, and I talk about my daughters and my granddaughters a lot. So, but my storytelling just comes from life events and things that really happen. I mean, like listen to David Spade. He talks about his kids and growing up, and this it's crazy stuff that you can't make up, and it's just I love how life, if you look at it in a comedic, perspective and point of view every day, there's some funny things going on, even through tragedy. So I really like the comedians that can do that, that can just bring real life to us and make it funny.
Describe the very first time you stepped onto a stage to perform stand up. What was going through your mind, and how did that experience shape your subsequent performances?
So this actually requires two answers because, like the very first time I stepped on stage, I already knew that I was funny and I had a good set prepared. And I had a really good friend that uh, was the reason why I got into comedy in the first place. Was he started doing comedy back in like 2008, and I loved him and I supported him. I went to all of his shows, so I knew the comedy community well, and I knew that I could do comedy. I just he couldn't just book me into a show. You have to go through the steps. You have to do open mic first. So I went and I did this open mic with a solid set prepared, and all that was going through my mind was, I have to show this audience uh, that I'm willing to do an open mic and that I'm funny and that I deserve my chance to get booked in the show. So I went and I did the set, and uh, my my mentor, Paul Spock, God bless his soul. We lost him recently. He was my inspiration to do comedy and continues to be my inspiration to continue doing comedy. Um, but my real first time on stage was that first time I performed comedy in front of my wife, my ex-wife, and my daughter, and the only validation I needed at that show. It was like performing in front of a scout or an agent, or like someone that can sign you to a big record label or a deal. Uh, that's all I needed to impress was her. And if I had her validation, if she said I was funny, then I was funny, and I believed it. So uh, I was so nervous because that's all I cared about was making her laugh. And I was listening for her laughter to the whole show, and I heard her and my daughter laughing. And so I got really nervous like halfway through my set. And I think I even finished like, 27 seconds early. I had 5 minutes and I did 4:33. And so at one point I even I looked around the audience and I said, wow, one can get really nervous up here. Uh, everybody's just staring at me, waiting for me to tell another joke. Anybody got one? You know, so I had people laughing and like it was a rehearsed piece, but it wasn't rehearsed at all. I was so nervous that even at the end, I, I did this whole setup, this whole premise to a joke that wasn't even a joke. I don't know where it came from. I just did this like autobiography of being born into a family and all right, have a good night. And later the host came to me and he's like, what's the punchline to that joke? Because I was coming up with a rebuttal to it when I got on stage, and there was no punchline. So what was the joke? I'm like, I don't know. I got so nervous halfway through, but uh, I succeeded the first, 3.5 minutes of my set, making my daughter and wife laugh. So uh, it really inspired me to continue doing comedy, and I think about that every time I get on set, on stage and do a set. I think about that night and how that was the validation I needed to continue doing comedy for 5 years. So yeah, that was a very important night. That so even though it was my second time on stage, I still consider that my first time. That was the only set I needed to do to continue my career and validate and know that I am a comedian and I am funny and I can make the crowd laugh.
Comedy is an evolving art form. How have you seen your own comedic style change and mature over the years?
When I first started doing comedy, I would work really hard to write jokes and what I thought was funny, and I had a lot of good one-liners at first, and I could do like a 20-minute set of just short, simple jokes that were funny that got people laughing. And then after the show, I would be outside talking to other comedians, and they'd ask questions. I would give them answers. I'd be telling life stories and life adventures, or about my siblings and growing up, and they would say things like, Why aren't you telling that on stage? I need to hear that on stage. That's funny." So then I start thinking about things that were happening with raising my twin granddaughters, and what it's like having twins, and questions people ask when you have twins, like, are they twins? And you know uh, that became my signature bit. Uh, People love, where's Brian is like my signature thing. When you hear where's Brian on the street, people know that that's a Robby comedy, piece, and that I wrote it. So, as life events happen and change, my comedy continues to evolve. I became, a story writing comic, and anecdotal comedy, using things that happened in my life. My wife left me last year, and I went into a really dark place. I started telling a lot of darker comedy and raunchier comedy, and then I was doing stoner jokes and just being this real dark character. And then I realized that uh, that I was gay, and started thinking about my whole life and wanting to be gay. I came out, and that's when my whole comedic venture began. Actually, I was able to laugh about it, make people laugh with me. I started talking about being 14 in 1984, and that it really wasn't a great time to come out, and so I had to stuff it. And I lived 30 years in a lie and in a marriage that I wasn't happy in, and so jokes just started coming naturally. And other comedians that had seen me for 3 years, 4 years, perform and start saying things, to me like, "Wow, bro, you're funnier now that you're gay." Not that being gay is funny, but you're more active on stage. You're vibrant. You're bouncing around. You're telling different jokes. You've even used the same jokes that you used to tell, but in a different light form, a different way, and so yeah, as my life has changed, and I've been able to write jokes differently, and I fit in a different category too sometimes when I tell comedy, because you know I'm I can go to LGBT plus shows, and so my life experience about coming out, and how that's affected my life, and I fit right in. I really enjoy this whole new part of me, and I still got my other jokes, and you know uh, other comedians, how they've responded to it and accepted me and just embraced how I tell my jokes now, and my daughters, how they embrace it. And I have a daughter that's a comedian, and it's really inspired her to write more jokes and be free and express her life, and how her dad being gay comedian in the same you know comedy uh, community has affected her comedy and her life. So it's been really great, and I guess yeah, that would be my answer. That uh, comedy is always changing and evolving, and so is life. And I wouldn't have been able to tell the jokes I tell now back in the '90s or when I first started doing comedy. But this is 2023, and you can be who you want to be, and it's amazing, and I'm really enjoying it. So my new comedy adventure is just killing.
Can you share a particularly challenging gig or phase in your early career? And what lessons did you take away from it?
When I first started doing comedy, I only did the one open mic, and then I started getting booked in shows. And I was doing quite a few pretty decent shows. I was doing paid shows from the very beginning, and I did like 5 shows that first year, and that was in like September, from September in 2018, and then all of 2019. So I did like a total of 7 shows before we went into COVID. And my last show was March 6th of 2020, and then we got locked down for that whole year. So I didn't do a lot of open mics, and so uh, we did during the lockdown. I did a lot of open mics online. I did a lot of online shows uh, through the Detroit and New York, New Jersey areas, a lot of Atlanta online shows. So I met a lot of people, networked a lot through that time to be able to book shows out of state and whatnot. So when we came back from COVID and things started opening up slowly in March of 2021, I was getting booked in shows again. So I went and did a show in Carson City and a show in Sacramento, and uh, I started going to open mics, and it's like none of the open micers knew who I was. And so then I started my own show, and I started booking shows and bringing Sacramento comics there, and booking a few of the local comedians. But I really didn't have a relationship with them or know them too well. So that was like a really tough phase, and they were all like giving me looks like, "Who is this guy? Who does he think he is? And why is he getting in these shows? And why am I going up before him? And why does he have his own show?" And so that was a really, really tough phase for me. But now I look back at it, and I'm like, you know what, though. Uh, I'm just gonna continue to do my comedy. I'm gonna just bounce back from it. I've got these connections across the states, and I'm gonna book shows and just go out and do my comedy and spread the, Robby Comedy, and it's really helped me to grow because I, I I know that open mics are a great tool and a great place to go work on new jokes, and I love doing them. But I don't need open mics for validation that I've got good jokes and have the ability to get on stage and just have a good time and make people laugh. So yeah, that was a really tough experience, and I grew from it. Another tough time was running a show on a Monday night at 10 p.m. for almost a year, and I finally got the 9 o'clock slot. But Monday night at 9 p.m. is a really tough time slot to run a show and book comedians, and I got through it, and I wasn't getting paid, and we were working off tips, and not many tips came in, and so not many comedians got paid all the time, and so it it, it just kind of dwindled, and so uh, I bounced back from it, and so now I get guaranteed paid gigs, and I go out and I deliver the best I can possibly deliver, and I'm growing, and I'm having a good time.
How do you handle the inevitable bombing on stage? And what strategies do you employ to bounce back?
Oh, I have definitely bombed, and I have even had times where I don't believe that I have bounced back. Um, but those times, I think when I bombed, uh, I just kept going and keeping the bomb going and bombed through the whole entire set. So there was no real bounce back. Um, I think there was one time where it wasn't really a bomb. It was um, the audience just kind of didn't like my. It was the wrong audience for that material, and they wouldn't go along with it. So I just went to my greatest hits. Jokes that have always worked in every audience, and they work every time, and I knew that they would work. So I just threw those old one-liners out, and they started hitting and making people laugh. And I've used that tactic several times when I felt like, oh shoot, this is the wrong audience for the semi-prepared. Get a bomb, so I'm just gonna throw these out and just have fun. And so yeah, I can usually bounce back with my greatest hits, and they're jokes for all ages and all times, and mostly clean. And I've got some that aren't so clean, but just I learn to read the crowd now, and that's all I do. Is I mean, I'll have a joke that bombs, but I don't really have sets that bomb anymore. And if I had a joke that bombs, then I throw it away. Or sometimes I'll use that to bring them back and make them laugh harder, like an intentional bomb, just to wake them up, make sure they're with me. So yeah, it's fun to try to learn from a joke that doesn't work. But just because it bombs in one audience doesn't mean it's going to bomb in every audience. You got people that don't get it sometimes. I have a joke that I tell that the way I set it up, I have the audience already prepared to laugh, and the first three parts of it were funny. So when I hit them with that, they think they're supposed to laugh, and they laugh, and then like, oh, like, oh, I can't laugh at that. So then I bring them back with another joke that's funny and hits, and they all laugh. So it's just the art and the skill, and just learning how to read your audience and know how you can put them on that roller coaster and make them go up and down. And so I call it creative bombing now. It's all tactical. It's all part of the plan, and I have fun with it. So yeah, you can come back from bombing just as long as you know how to bomb around the scene instead of hitting the X every time. Because once you hit the X, then it's over. You're not going to get the crowd back. So yeah, get on the outer perimeters of the crowd with your bomb and make it stink just a little bit, and then they'll quickly heal from the burn. And yeah, that's how you come back from a bomb.
Walk us through your process of creating a new joke or bit. Do you start with a premise, a punchline, or something else entirely?
I guess there's really no process of writing a joke. I guess my process would be just paying attention to life and things that occur, because it's just things I see that become jokes. When I was married, uh, my ex-wife and I, we raised, our granddaughters. They were twins, and everywhere we went, people would ask, "Are they twins?" And that became one of my signature bits. Was "Where's Brian?" Because answering the question yes when it was obvious that they were twins just kind of got old. So, we came up with stupid answers for a stupid question, and we had fun with it. And it became one of my biggest jokes. It was just something that really occurred, things that people say. I'm in Arizona right now, and I wear a LA Rams hat because I'm an LA Rams fan. And I've had two different gentlemen walk up to me in a grocery store, and I thought they were going to beat me up because it's an Arizona Cardinals town. And no, they're like, "Nice hat, dude." And so, things like that just happen to me become a joke. So, I, you know, uh, I take that as the joke. Sometimes there's no premise, there's no writing. There's just there it is. It just happened during COVID. Uh, Banks, you couldn't go inside of a bank, so I had to cash my check in a drive-through teller. And I worked for a company that gave me a post-dated check. I get the check every Tuesday, but it wasn't good till Friday. Because if I pull up into that drive-through teller area and I looked and there was a woman behind the glass, she would cash my check. So I was like, cool. But if I pulled up and there was a man behind the glass, he'd be like, "Sir, please come back on Friday. This is dated for Friday. You cannot cash it today." So I was like, bummer. So one day, it was a Tuesday, I got my check, and it was me and my ex-wife's anniversary. It was like a 20-year anniversary, and I really wanted to take her out. So I was excited. I was gonna go cash check, and I'm like, "Please be a woman, please be a woman." And I pulled up, and it was two men behind the glass. I was like, "Oh, there's no chance I'm gonna cash my check." So I mean, and this is all true. So I texted my ex-wife, and I told her, I says, "There's two guys behind the glass. There's no way I'm gonna cash my check." I swear to God, she texted me back and said, "Do what I would do, show them your tits." So I get police called on me, I get arrested. So I did what she would do. I told them her tits, and that part was a joke. I didn't really, but uh, the joke is that I put my phone in that little vacuum tube and sent it over to them, and there was a picture of her tits, and so they cashed my checks. But the premise just wrote itself, and I went from there, And that's what I do with most of my jokes. It's just life events and things that occur, you know. And I, I just, I just visualize life in a comedic, you know, point of view, and just see things happen around me, and they became a joke. It's like, I was recently asked to do a eulogy at a funeral, and I'm sure there's a lot of jokes there that I'll get back to you later. But premises just begin when you talk to someone on Earth, right?
How do you decide which topics are off limits for you, if any? And how do you navigate sensitive subjects in your comedy?
Well, I wouldn't really say that there were any topics that was wholly off limits if I've lived the experience. But I guess it's a standard old rule. If you don't have it or haven't experienced it, then don't talk about it or poke fun or jokes about it. But it just depends how you do it, how you go about it. I mean, if you're not poking fun and being a total jerk, then it's okay to make jokes about it. Like I came out last year, and so I identify as being gay. So I've been openly gay. It's opened me up to a lot more jokes. I'm accepted differently in different communities, and I can poke fun at my experiences that I had being gay, and living with it my whole life and hiding it, not getting to live my true life, and so those are things I experienced. But I really don't go out of my realm, and I read the audience. I was married to a black woman for a lot of years, and I do have mixed children, but I still tread lightly on telling, stereotypical black jokes. But if I lived it, then, and I experienced it, then of course I'll talk about it, but I'm not stupid about it. And I'm respectful. And plus, there's so many other topics that I have jokes about that I've lived and experienced that I really don't have time to think about what crosses the line and what doesn't. I mean, I have a couple sensitive jokes about the Catholic Church and altar boys that might be questionable, but um, so be it. I was an altar boy, and I did go to all boys Catholic boarding school, and so I did live it, and so I joke about it. And if you don't like it, well, maybe you should have experienced being an altar boy in the '80s. I don't know what I'll say. I don't wish on nobody, but yeah. Um, Yeah, I just don't have time to think about what's off limits. I just talk about what I've experienced, and those are, my limits and my bounds and what I talk about.
Share with us one of the most memorable moments you've had on stage, whether it was a surprising audience reaction, an unexpected event, or a personal breakthrough.
Yeah, definitely, 100%, hands down. The night that I featured to my daughter, she headlined the show. Hands down, the best, most spectacular show in my career. Probably the best I'll ever have was. Um, I had produced the show for 2 years, and uh, my daughter had just been doing comedy for a year. She had really excelled, and she was succeeding in the comedy world, and she was super funny. And I felt that she was at that point where she was getting more gigs than me out of town, and she was better than me. I mean, she was funny, and I wanted to admit that, I'm going to give her the ultimate bow down. I'm going to feature to her in the headlining position in my show. She did 45 minutes and she rocked it, and the audience loved her. She got a standing O, and I was super super proud of her. So 100%, that was uh, the uh, best experience. I mean, that was the most memorable moment I ever had on stage because I got to feature to my daughter who inspired to be a comedian because I was a comedian, and she's like, Dad, I think I can do this. I mean, it was like a year before that, and she called me and she says, Dad, I want to do comedy. I've got a set together. I think I can do comedy. Would you book me in one of your shows? And I said, baby girl, I can't do that because you have to go through the steps. You have to do open mics just like everybody else. He says, okay, well, when's the next open mic? I said, well, it's tonight. It's Tuesday. It's 8 p.m. It starts at 9 p.m. at the office. And she says, I'll meet you there. And I'm telling you, she showed up, and she showed up. She delivered a set that had a crowd just cheering, and she was funny. And so I booked her in a show, and other producers around town booked her in shows, and she just worked her way up, and she got to where she could host my show, and she hosted quite a few of my shows, and she later featured my show, and uh, she headlined the show, and then I said, you know what, I'm going to feature her in one of my last shows that I do here. So that's what I did, and that was the most memorable show ever. Was when I featured to my daughter. She got to that level where she was worthy of me showing her how worthy she was, and so that was it.
Have you ever had an interaction with a fan or audience member that deeply impacted you or changed the way you approach comedy?
Yeah, actually once. And it really did deeply impact me, and it made me realize that okay, some topics aren't off limits, and it is okay to talk about these things. Um, and I'll briefly touch on it, just like I briefly touched on the joke. I have a daughter, my youngest daughter, and she experienced a lot of bullying through school, and she went through some stages of deep depression, and she was cutting, and it was right around the same time that I started doing comedy, and she had heard several jokes that I had written about her mother and her sister and her twin nieces, and she looked at me and she says, "Dad, I don't want you telling any jokes about me because, yeah, please don't tell any jokes about me." And I looked at her arms where she'd been cutting, and I said, "Don't worry, I won't." And she says, "That right there, you could tell that's funny." And so I told it one night, but I don't tell it often. I've told it like twice in 5 years. And the first night I really didn't get a reaction, but the second night I told it after the show, out of all the jokes that I told, and I've told over and over again for 3.5 years, this woman walked up to me afterwards and she said, that cutting joke was really awesome. I'm glad that you talked about it. It needs a little bit more awareness. Not enough people talk about cutters. So I was a cutter. And I found that to be very humorous because you looked at her scars and you're like, oh, hell no, I'm not telling jokes about her. If she did that to herself, what the hell will she do to me? And that was the punchline that was hidden in there that I don't say out loud, but she got it. And she said, that really touched me. And I'm glad that you kind of exposed it a little bit. And it was light enough to where, us cutters got it. And she says, thank you. Thank you for telling it. You should write a couple more. And so I guess that was the one interaction that I ever got from any audience member about a joke touching them, or making them cry, or bringing up a very tough subject, because I know it was very tough for my daughter, and I don't talk about it much. And it was tough for me to see, my 9-year-old with scars on her arms, and so that joke was acceptable by her, and so I might bring it back to life and tell it again. But yeah, that that was it inspired me to go deeper into being in the closet for so many years, and being openly gay, and um, coming out, and my 50s in 2023 and going on Grinder and how the whole scene is. So writing jokes on those different topics has been inspiring now because that one woman has said that cutting joke touched her.
How do you feel about the current trends in stand up comedy, especially with the rise of online platforms and social media influencing the comedic landscape?
I think it's great that we have the world at our fingertips, that we can do online comedy and we can do this sort of thing, to get the world out. I'm a little past the technology, and I have difficulties going online and navigating through different sites because I'm old. um, but I like the whole concept of it, and like I said, I enjoy being able to do online stuff. New trends. Everybody's just talking about things that we used to talk about before, but it's just in a different light. Um, we're more edgy now, and I like it. Edgy without being edgy or being more woke. It's a different world now, so there's a lot of things that we can really have a lot of fun with, and there's other things that you have to be careful how you have fun with it. But you know, uh, I just approach it, with just every day and um, just being me and talk about my life events and what happens on a current daily way and just how I see things. um, yeah, I don't think that any current trends that other people are doing are going to affect the way that I continue to do my comedy. I just continue to talk about my life and how I grew up and um, just things that are funny, and I continue to keep the crowds laughing. So um, the trends don't really affect me. So I guess that's my answer.
There's been a lot of discussion about cancel culture and comedy. What's your perspective on the balance between pushing boundaries and being respectful?
I really don't pay attention to it. Nothing that I joke about or talk about is is a cancel culture. You can't cancel real life events. Almost 99% of my jokes really occurred, really happened. They're not offensive to anybody. They're my life, my outlook on the life that I lived, without hurting anybody's feelings. And if you get offended by my jokes, then you haven't walked in my shoes. I'm sorry, but I just really don't pay attention to cancel culture. I mean, I know it exists. I know that they're out there, but I really don't have to think about anything because I really don't go there. I wasn't raised that way, and so there's really no boundaries in my joke telling. I've never really crossed that line of being canceled. So yeah, it doesn't really affect me. And, um, I'm, s- I just don't pay attention to it. And I don't really listen to many comedians that walk on that line of being canceled. I mean, part of the reason why I came to Arizona in the first place was because I do better comedy. I mean, I researched them and I'd seen them online. I liked them on Facebook. I had their group and their page and everything. And I wanted to come down to the Phoenix area because I saw that Do Better Comedy was here and I liked all their bylaws and their rules. And I read them over and over again. And I'm like, yes, this is awesome. I want to be a part of this. And I'm booked to do my second show with Do Better Comedy on the 24th of October. And so I'm really excited about that because I really believe in the organization, what they do for comedians and the audience. And we don't offend anybody, and we want everybody to be included. Feel like they have a right to be there and not be, poked fun at or laughed at or anything. So I think it is like the most awesome thing to be able to have a platform. So yeah, that that is my perspective on boundaries. That I just don't push them because I respect. So yeah.
How do you see the future of stand up comedy evolving, especially in a post pandemic world where virtual shows have become more prominent?
Well, I don't really know that they become more prominent now. I mean, at first probably, but people are really enjoying doing live shows again, and people are getting booked more than ever. There are more comedians than I've ever seen before. post pandemic, and people are really getting out there and doing open mics. The open mic lists are full and jammed. A lot of people are having to sign up for open mics online, days or a week before. And so, as far as comedy involving online, I don't know about that, but I certainly enjoyed doing online shows. Um, Performing in a live club is so much more fun though, and I don't think you can replace it. So I don't think it'll ever evolve out of a club. I just wish that we could get more online platforms to practice on, and that could lead to more future club performances. Maybe we can combine the two some way down the road to have people go to a club to watch an online performance. I don't know. But yeah, I just like the way comedy's going for me right now. I'm getting out, doing shows, and traveling America and having a lot of fun. Just doing shows, however they are. I really love the online platform here that Rob Chaffee has provided for us, though, to practice and do workshops and do classes. And it's such a great and valuable tool for us. And I am entered in the contest, so yeah, vote for me, by the way, because it's fun to be able to have that contest, and we'll be able to do a live showdown, I guess, at the end. The top 8 of us, if we make it that far. So, yeah, vote every day. Uh, Thank you for being able to, provide this for us. I enjoy that.
If you had to describe your comedic style in 3 words, what would they be and why?
Real life experiences, because all my jokes, that's all they are. They're just real life experiences told in a comedic point of view, the way that I see them, and I make light of it and make it funny. I mean, a lot of my life wasn't probably that funny, but you look back at it, and everything can be funny. So yeah, just real life experiences that I live daily, and things I see, and things that occur. So yeah, real life experiences.
Who are some current comedians you admire or believe are pushing the boundaries of the art form?
So I don't really listen to a lot of new current comedians. I'm really caught up in writing my new material and being relevant in today's comedy world. So I don't listen to a lot of new comedians. But as far as new uprising comedians in the local scene, I would have to say, hands down, Julia Judkins. I mean, yes, she's my daughter, but she is really funny. She really pushes the boundaries as being a female comedian and being dirty and being hilarious. And she's really inspiring to watch her just grow and be a funny comedian. Another one is Stephen Molman. I've watched him grow and become a headliner, and he's an openly bisexual male comedian, and he's really super funny, and he knows how to balance the you know comedy and keep it on the fine tightrope of of what's pushing the limits and boundaries of comedy. Another one is a new uprising comedian, Chris Rojas. I mean, he he redefines comedy. He pushes the boundaries in his own way. He breaks all the rules. He's a very unorthodox comedian, and I absolutely love this guy. I'm watching him rise to be a star. I recently read a comment posted on social media by another local Reno comedian that said, I can't wait until the day that I can say that I knew Chris Rojas before he was famous. And mark my words, Chris Rojas will absolutely be famous someday.
Comedy often serves as a reflection of society. How do you incorporate your personal experiences and observations about the world into your sets?
Well, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. That is my comedy. My comedy writes itself. It is all life experiences. I incorporate everything that I see, everything that I say, everything I hear on a daily basis is incorporated in my comedy. My comedy is my life. It is what I do, and it writes itself. Every joke that I tell is is life experiences and things that I've experienced and witnessed and seen. And sometimes it's embellished a little bit, sometimes a little added to it, sometimes, I take away, sometimes I write based on an idea, but most every single one of my jokes is based on life experiences and you know personal experiences that and observations that happen on a daily basis. So yeah, I incorporate everything in my life into my sets.
For aspiring comedians listening to this podcast, what piece of advice would you give them that you wish someone had given you when you were starting out?
If you think it's funny, go with it. Work with it. Work it out. Try it in different venues in front of different audiences. Reword it, reroute it, rewrite it, rewrite it, rewrite it. Keep working on that joke. Just because one person or one audience doesn't find it funny, if you do, make it funny. That's advice that I wish that I would have been given. That don't give up on a joke. I've tossed a lot of jokes on the ground that I picked back up and reworked and brought back out, and they're big hits. So, yeah, don't give up on yourself. Don't underestimate yourself. If you think it's funny, it probably is funny. Just find a way to make it funny. Rewrite it, rework it, tell it in front of different people. Always take positive criticism, positive feedback from other comedians. Don't take it so personal and think that they're trying to hurt your feelings or they're cutting on your joke. They're just trying to help you improve it and make it funnier. One of the the best piece of advice I ever got was a punchline or a punch back an extra, punchline to a joke that I never considered. Uh, was I had to just rework my set a little bit to fit it in, and it never made sense to me that it was funny until I started using it, and it actually was funny, and it made the joke a little bit better. So yeah, never give up on a joke, and um, take criticism and use every angle you can to make it funny.
Finally, what's next for you in your comedic journey? And where can our listeners catch your next performance?
Well, I'm definitely not going to stop. I'm going to keep going, keep pushing. What's next in my comedic journey is just hitting every comedy club and place where I can do comedy across the country. I'm in Arizona now, and I'm moving on to New Mexico next month, and I've got some shows lined up in Texas, Oklahoma, and uh, I'll be down in Tennessee in December. But my next show that you can catch me at will be in Glendale, Arizona, at Stir Crazy Comedy Club at the Westgate Entertainment Center, which is right next to the stadium where the Arizona Cardinals play. That will be on Thursday night, October the 19th at 7 p.m. And then again on Tuesday night, October the 24th at 8 p.m., I will be performing with Do Better Comedy Club at the Womack in Phoenix. It's downtown Phoenix. And I'm really excited about both these shows. Come see me, come check me out, tell your friends. If you're in the Phoenix area, you won't be disappointed. Two really, really exciting shows. I'm really looking forward to Stir Crazy. I love performing there. It's a great nightclub. So come out and check it out.
I've been your host, Rob Chaffee. Don't forget to laugh today. It's good for you. Comedy Reset Spotlight is a podcast that brings you today's freshest and funniest comedy creators. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to hear more.